Man, what a sad, sad day for the MMA community if you're an MMA fan. We're so cooked, guys. We're screwed. We were so back until we weren't. After all this, mess in the media over what's going to happen of the fate for Conor versus Chandler. Is it off? Is it isn't? Last week we were back. This week we're not so back. And we thought Ariel was just BSing us, but now we're hearing from other sources that Charles Oliveira has been called to step in for Conor. They're saying he's injured and that they're looking to do Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler 2. Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler 2. If, say, they cannot last minute get Prohaska and Pereira to headline that card on the same card as Jamal Hill, which would actually be pretty huge given that beef they got going on right now. But yeah, McGregor Chandler is basically off. And on top of that, Whittaker versus Chimaev 2 is in jeopardy. So I'm going to break down both those situations in today's video. So, first and foremost, I got to talk about the Charles Oliveira Michael Chandler fight and Conor being out. This is so depressing. Like, we were literally supposed to be eating good in the month of June. We waited through all these crappy Apex events. We endured one of the worst pay-per-views of the year. I mean, UFC 301 sucked. It wasn't that bad of a card when it happened, but the card placement, the matchups didn't look that great on paper. We got through that. We got through the Apex events after. We got through a crappy UFC 302 that only had one good main event, which was Makhachev and Poirier. That was like the one good fight on that card. We endured through that pain. We went through so much suffering and sacrifice. Sorry, I'm a bit sick if you guys can't tell. We endured so much crap so that we could finally get the return of Conor McGregor, and the week before, Khamzat Chimaev versus Robert Whittaker. But we don't get both those things now. We don't get either. After everything, like, what did we do to deserve this? Is this because UFC 300 went through and nobody pulled out? Like, did we literally sacrifice to the MMA gods Conor's return just so UFC 300 could be perfect? Seriously? But anyway, all jokes aside, man. Well, I'm not really joking. Conor McGregor is a guy who's known for not wanting to pull out of fights. He's that guy who never pulls out. So the fact that he has to pull out while being injured, it just shows that the injury is that bad to where he needs to be pulled from the matchup. Although it's weird. Wasn't he just seeing sparring recently and looking sharp in sparring after the news of the fight maybe being off and then us being so back? Like, I don't get it. Unless that was like sparring footage from before the injury, I have no clue, but it must be that bad to where the UFC is like, yeah, Conor, we're sorry. We tried to wait it out, but you're not going to be able to fight. Yeah, so I guess Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler 2 it is. About that matchup, who wins? How does it play out? This fight will probably be at 170, right? Since Chandler's not cutting weight, he's been preparing, he's been bulking up for this transition to 170 pounds for like the last year, because he's been used to fighting at lightweight. He's been preparing to fight at welterweight. Oliveira's been talking about fighting at 170, so I think this fight will take place at 170. And I do think that this move to 170 is going to be a lot better for Charles Oliveira than it will be for Michael Chandler. Even though it'll be both men's first time fighting at 170, I can just picture Chandler being a little bit more bloated up, and he carries so much muscle already, so I can only imagine him just gassing quicker. Whereas Charles Oliveira, for some reason, I can just see his body quickly adapting because he already has to cut so much weight just to get down to 155. I think he'll be a lot more filled up, a lot more healthy. He was already powerful at lightweight. Imagine him at welterweight. I think Charles Oliveira is going to beat Michael Chandler again, not only because I think that he's just a better fighter than Michael Chandler. I also just think that Chandler, if he has to fight anyone other than Conor, I don't think Michael Chandler is going to be able to make that mental switch of, I've waited 2 years for the big money fight. I finally got it. It's not happening anymore. Now I got to fight somebody else. I don't think Chandler is going to be able to make that switch mentally. I think Chandler will be mentally drained. He's not going to be motivated to fight anyone other than Conor. I feel like he needs this fight. He needs to get this fight over with before he can move on to fight somebody else, and he's not going to get that chance now. Although it'll be an opportunity to avenge a loss from 3 years ago, this is not the right time or place for Chandler mentally to prepare to beat a guy like Charles Oliveira, where Charles, he's coming off a loss. But see, Charles Oliveira, he's going to have a different mindset going into this fight. He's going to come in more motivated, more angry. He's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder because he was the number 1 lightweight in the world. He was already supposed to fight Islam for the title. He had to pull out due to a cut, and then he had to go backwards in the rankings, risk his spot against Sarukian, and the risk backfired. He lost his number 1 spot. So I think Oliveira, I think that loss to Sarukian motivated him. It lit a fire under Charles Oliveira because he even said he wanted to come back as soon as possible. He wanted to come back ASAP, and his coaches are like, nah, take a bit of time off. But if he has a chance to fight again in the 2 months after 300, he's going to take that chance. He has that chance. And I think he's going to want it more than Michael Chandler, believe it or not, despite the fact that, of this fight series, Chandler's the one coming off the losing end of that previous fight. Oliveira is going to want to get that win more than, he's going to want that win more than Michael Chandler. Because he's not in that position where he was preparing for that money fight and got it taken from him. He's in a position where it's like, I'm coming off a loss. I lost my number 1 contender spot. I lost my chance to get redemption against Islam. I want back in there. And I think we might see a very similar Charles Oliveira that we saw against Justin Gaethje, that we saw against Beneil Dariush. Now, I know styles make fights. He was able to do what he did to those guys because stylistically, he's a bad matchup for them, whereas you won't see him do that to Islam or Arman ever. But he could do that to Michael Chandler. Chandler's been done like that before. He's been knocked out in the first round before. And I do think that if Charles does win again, it will definitely be another knockout. I don't see him submitting Michael Chandler, even though Dustin Poirier did. I mean, he could sub Chandler if Chandler gasses out, and that's how Dustin was able to get the submission. But I do think that this fight will mainly be contested in the stand-up, and Charles Oliveira is better than Michael Chandler on the feet. I think he's just too technical for Michael Chandler. He's got way too many tools, and even though Chandler has more power, Oliveira is more accurate with his punching, and he's more likely to land first. And Charles Oliveira showed already he can survive, that early storm of Michael Chandler. He already showed that he can handle Chandler, when he's at his most dangerous. Whereas Chandler, when he starts going through adversity against Oliveira, he's done. And I don't see that being any different in this rematch. I think that I just think history's going to repeat itself in this fight. I think the only way Michael Chandler is going to get redemption against Charles Oliveira is if he wrestles. Because Arman Sarukian was able to take down Charles Oliveira, neutralize his ground game, dominate on top. And Michael Chandler is a good wrestler with good anti-jiu-jitsu. Oliveira last time was not able to sub him. So I do think that if Michael Chandler doesn't try to get in a stand-up war with Dubronx, because he'll be at risk of getting caught again, if he tries to be smart and grapple with Charles Oliveira, like Arman Sarukian did, like Islam did, either way, I think Oliveira is going to just survive on the ground, and then the fight's going to restart standing, and Chandler's going to get caught either way. But his odds of winning will be much better if he wrestles Oliveira, because I don't know, I don't see Oliveira getting a sub off his back. I mean, maybe he could get a guillotine, but guillotines don't really work in high-level MMA anymore. Yeah, I don't know. But he has to wrestle. Let's just say that. He must wrestle Charles do Bronx Oliveira. Take him down, try to wear him out, and try to maul him on the ground. Because Oliveira, he's been out-wrestled before. Kevin Lee was able to take him down and control him. Now, he's got to be careful. He's got to be mindful because Oliveira on the ground is still very dangerous. Still very dangerous off his back. But Chandler on top is very difficult. To sub him, you got to get him in like a rear naked choke like Dustin did and when he's gassed out. So, we'll see. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I do think, combine the fact that Oliveira, I do think is better than Michael Chandler. Even though Chandler was winning until he got caught, I do think in that fight, Oliveira was always bound to win that fight past the first round. Because Chandler, he's explosive early on, but through that fast twitch muscle, that does expend a lot of energy. It does drain the tank. And Oliveira's got great cardio. So even if Oliveira didn't catch him, Oliveira was eventually going to catch him in some exchange or was probably going to sub him one way or another. And Chandler was probably going to lose steam to his shots. So I do think Oliveira, again, he's better technically, a better striker. He's got the toughness to survive that early storm. And he's got that danger factor to be able to finish the fight when he needs to. So, yeah, I think Oliveira will win. Knockout again, probably. Maybe in the third round. I could also see it ending in the first. But, yeah, Oliveira, chip on his shoulder. He's going to look to get back in that win column. And with a potential win over Michael Chandler, a Conor McGregor fight might be on the line. And he's going to be motivated to try and get that fight with Conor. So, we'll see. But now moving on to Robert Whittaker versus Khamzat Chimaev being in jeopardy. I'm hearing that fight is in jeopardy and they're already looking for a replacement. Robert Whittaker tweeted, anyone, anywhere, anytime. And I just thought it was just a simple tweet, but apparently there's a deeper meaning to that. And just reading this just pisses me off because it's just like, come on, man. Come on, why can't Khamzat get it together? Why does he keep pulling out? Why does he keep fighting once a year? And the sad thing is, I was starting to think that he was going to beat Robert Whittaker. I was considering picking Khamzat to beat Whittaker, to take that number one spot, and to fight for the belt against Adesanya Duplessis. I think he could beat the winner of that fight, Adesanya Duplessis. I think he could be champion of the middleweight division. He absolutely could be champ at 170, at middleweight, but this guy keeps fighting once a year, hardly shows up to fights. He's just as unreliable as Paulo Costa was before 2024. You know what I mean? So I don't know why he'd be pulling out. Like, did he fall ill? Did he get injured? Is it visa problems? I mean, this is in the Middle East. Why would a Middle Eastern have visa issues in the freaking Middle East? I guess it depends on which part of the Middle East, but come on, man. If this fight is off, no one else is going to step in and replace Khamzat Chimaev. Robert Whittaker will not fight, and the main event will be Sergey Pavlovich versus Alexander Volkov, which I'm fine with that, seeing that for 5 rounds. Maybe they'll keep it 3 rounds since both were preparing for 3. But who in these rankings would step in and replace Chimaev? Nasruddin Imavov just fought, and it was a hard-fought fight for 4 rounds, where, you know, he did take some damage against Cannonier. He did get banged up. He's not turning around on a week's notice. Marvin Vettori got a shoulder surgery. Cannonier not happening. I mean, Brendan Allen could maybe step in. Jack Hermanson. Roman Dolidze was actually supposed to fight in the month of June, so maybe Roman Dolidze could fill in. I don't know. Michel Pereira. Wait, no, I don't think he's on that card. Never mind. If he is, he could fill in. I don't think I have my facts straight with that one. I don't know what the hell is going on with Michel Pereira, but he could maybe step in. Okay, so maybe there is someone who could step in, but I mean, I swear to God, if we end up getting Chris Curtis versus Robert Whittaker, on short notice. I'm going to be so pissed off. Like, Curtis is injured, so that's not going to happen. It'll probably be Brendan Allen versus Robert Whittaker maybe, or Jack Hermanson versus Robert Whittaker, which is not interesting at all, to say the least. I mean, Whittaker will just destroy either one of those guys. The Chimaev fight was actually interesting. That fight was actually interesting because Khamzat Chimaev had a lot of adversity against Usman past the first round, but he was injured. But in that first round, he was able to dominate Kamaru Usman with the wrestling, and Robert Whittaker got mauled on the ground by the bigger, stronger Dricus du Plessis. And I'm thinking, man, if du Plessis could take him down and maul him like that, I can only imagine what Khamzat could do. And if Khamzat can manage his cardio, or if his cardio could somehow be better in this fight, he might be able to completely dominate Whittaker. Maybe he could knock Whittaker out too on the feet because he's got that kind of power. So I was considering the possibility of Chimaev winning this fight. So if this fight doesn't freaking happen, then yeah, Chimaev's career is done. He'll never be champion. He'll be that guy, that what-if fighter, and that waste of potential. I mean, I'm really hoping that all this is a big scare. I hope that we're going to get Chandler McGregor and not Oliveira Chandler too. Even though that's an interesting fight, it's a good fight. Oliveira, Michael Chandler. First fight was a banger. I don't want to see it right now, man. I just want to see Conor back, and I want to see Conor versus Chandler because that's such an interesting fight. Explosive first round. We really thought we had something to look forward to, huh? But the MMA gods were like, did you really think you were going to get Whittaker, Chimaev, and Conor's return back-to-back in the same week? I don't think so. So, I guess it's back to more shitty Apex events for the next month until UFC London, or Manchester. But see y'all later.